from my wife.
Jeter separated his shoulder.
Yeah, huge Yankees fan. I don't know why. I
watch
can't
that? I
stand the
saw that.
Yankees.
That was
On the
bad.
highlights?
You got
It
him
looked
right
like it
there.
hurt.
Got him right there, right between the,
The Yankees.
How long do they figure he's going to be on the whole year?
could be 2 months, could be the whole year.
Give him a call.
He's going to see an orthopedic specialist. He may,
They brought the other guy up from
yeah, Almonte.
AAA. Figure he'll play tomorrow.
Once again, is it better to read this first and then introduce the
One of the division league.
That's brilliant.
What do we think? I'll read it first and then you can introduce them.
Wilmington, Illinois.
They could say whatever they want to say.
That's where they make the fundraising, raising bars. They could probably, set, but you'd have to see this setup.
You, Bob, you will introduce them after I read it? You'll introduce them after I read it? Okay.
This machine runs 122,000 bars a shift.
How you doing?
Around the clock.
Oh,
That's the standard. A lot of times they run a lot more.
Dave?
Oh, that's right, you were not.
Yeah, you gotta have chocolate. We make all the chocolate. We make all the rest of it. There's more to it. Plus, we're the only said that. We're the
Prick. Swinging the sand.
all the co-packers.
He's bad.
The $100,000 bars we make it run.
She asked if we could supply her with a copy of that.
It's a happy stuff that says it.
Okay.
Please rise for the pledge of flags.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Much could be said about our prayers, and we do offer them sincerely to our Lord. First, peace, that the war will stop, and that all our soldiers, our men and females that are serving our country will be brought back, that the casualties there will be very, very limited, and we offer our blessings to them and a safe return.
Clerk, call the roll.
Mayor Stafford?
Here.
Alderman Lincoln?
Here.
Alderman Sahaski? Alderman Weston?
Here.
Alderman Cavallaro? Here. Alderman Thompson?
Here.
Alderman Woodward?
Here.
City Attorney Hawthorne?
Here.
All present, Your Honor.
Thank you. First on the agenda, we have a proclamation in support of the U.S. and coalition troops in Iraq and around the world.
Whereas the City of Fulton asks all of its residents to support the young men and women serving our country and the countries of our allies, protecting our freedom and rights as they fight to liberate the oppressed, so they may have the same freedoms that we take for granted. Whereas the city urges the support of the young men and women who have sacrificed and left their families, homes, and jobs in service to their country, and to always keep in mind these service people who are putting themselves in harm's way so that we can continue to have civil liberties and enjoy our freedom, fighting terrorism on foreign soil so we don't have to live in fear. Whereas the city recognizes and supports the sacrifices of the Fulton families who have sons and daughters, husbands and wives, brothers and sisters, nieces and nephews, friends and neighbors in the armed services. Now therefore be it resolved that as a symbol of pride in our servicemen and women, the City of Fulton requests that all residents display with pride the American flag and the symbolic yellow ribbon as a sign of support and hope for their safe return.
Thank you. Alderman Weston?
I would like to introduce to you, first of all, Rolene Stewart. Rolene, could you stand up, please? Second, I'd like to introduce Dennis Dumas, who's the acting principal at G. Ray Bodley High School. Mary Grace Frank, G. Ray Bodley High School, and Denise Paulowitz, G. Ray Bodley High School. I certainly want to thank especially Rolene for initiating this resolution, and I'm sure that Denise will have some words on the wall of honor that's at the high school. We're starting to set it up today.
Getting started.
So, Rolene, could you come up to the microphone first?
My knees are shaking.
I wouldn't ask you to go ahead.
Well, this is my son. He was called to active duty February 4th. Some of you are aware of the fact he's also an Atlanta police officer. And he is in the National Guard, which is the surprising aspect of all this, that he is National Guard and he was called to active duty. I can't publicly announce what he is with because of my husband's and my safety. He is in Kuwait. I would like to thank the Honorable Mayor, Mr. Bob Weston, and the rest of the City Council for honoring our request and taking an interest in proposing this resolution. I have lived through him going through basic training. I have lived through him being shot at in Atlanta. But I think this is the worst of the tribulations a mother has to face. And I'm sure Denise can vouch for that.
There's no doubt about that.
You know, being a police officer, you can understand the fears that go along with that. But I never thought I would have to send my son to war. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Denise, would you like to speak to the wall of honor at school?
Thank you. On behalf of myself as a parent and a citizen of Fulton, and on behalf of the school district for proclaiming and honoring and recognizing the soldiers. This is my son, Toby, and he is in Kuwait. He was called over 2 weeks ago, and there was 2 weeks where we weren't sure where he was and what has happened to him, but he is safe. He did call last week, so he is going into Iraq shortly. This is a very trying time for all of us, and to help get through this time, Jackie Stewart and Mary Grace Frank and myself tried to put our energies into something positive, the little bit that we can do to try and support our troops here at home. So we did come up with a Wall of Courage, where we're honoring, we have over 40, I think, names of alumni that have graduated just within the past 6 or 7 years that are actively serving. They may not be fighting in Operation Iraqi Freedom, but they're definitely serving. So we wanted to honor them in some special way. So we have a wall with their pictures with information about where they're stationed. We also are seeking their addresses so that we can have students or classrooms and clubs at the high school and even throughout the school district adopt a soldier, where we can write to them. The other thing that we're doing is we do have, we've decided to join forces and participate with the United Way in packages from home. So we are going to collect goods and items. We will be putting special messages like with love from Fulton in each of the little bags. And so whoever gets those packages, they'll know that somebody cares about them in Fulton. So we are going to unveil our wall publicly Thursday at 3 o'clock at G. Ray Bodley High School. We would like to see all of you there. Thank
3
you.
o'clock on Thursday.
3 o'clock on Thursday. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I wonder if we could just, the press, could we take a quick picture of the mayor They know how to smile. Who wants to take a picture? How can I not do
Give it to somebody else.
He's been on my back all week.
Does it automatically?
Legend in his own mind.
Oh, jeez, You're gonna have to pull up the section of the charter tomorrow that reminds you that you serve at his will and his pleasure.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. And you can spell politics, that's good. I can't. I always forget a letter, you know. Thanks, Denise.
He hasn't said much. He's been pretty quiet.
When's he leaving?
I don't know. I don't know when he leaves.
This just brings to mind, we have so many over there in harm's way. Two that we know of tonight from our community, and we know there are many more. But when we see everything that's happening, and we're able to see it on television now, this is affecting cities, towns, villages across the country. It's not just here. This just brings it home. And I can't be more proud of our service people that are over there doing what they're trained to do and trying to bring to another country some of the freedom that we're able to experience here, and putting their lives on the line to do that. But that's what we're all about. And if it wasn't for people and our servicemen like that in the past, we wouldn't be here tonight. First item.
Resolved, the minutes of the council meeting held on March 18th are hereby approved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Next item.
Resolved that the clerk's report for December 2002, the amount of $10,728.24, is hereby received, approved, and placed on file.
Motion?
I'll offer that.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next item.
Resolved, the clerk's annual report for 2002 in the amount of $86,384.82 is hereby received, approved, and placed on file.
Motion? Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next item.
Resolved that the clerk's report for January 2003 in the amount of $6,690.40, and February 2003, the amount of $5,037.83 are hereby received, approved, and placed on file.
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next item.
Whereas the City of Fulton Community Development Agency has caused a title search to be done of the property known as Site 17B at the northeast corner of North First and Oneida Streets. Whereas said title search reveals that the city has no identifiable fee interest in said property. but in order to resolve any issues concerning street beds and the like, recommends a quitclaim deed from the city in order to have clear title for a potential developer. Now therefore be it resolved that the mayor is authorized to sign a quitclaim deed to the Community Development Agency for said property, and he is further authorized to sign any other papers necessary to record said deed.
I'll move it.
You said 617.
17B. It's
Because here it says 17. Are there-
well, it's,
Okay.
there was A and B. A is where the Valley News is.
Okay.
B is the vacant lot.
Right.
Does that just take care of any easements or through there, like paper streets and stuff?
Do we have a motion?
We have a motion?
I'll have that.
I'll second it.
Any further discussion?
Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
It was like a double.
Motion carried. Next item.
Resolved that pursuant to a traffic study conducted by the Traffic Division of the Fulton Police Department, the following amendments to Chapter 165 of the Vehicle and Traffic Law is hereby amended to read as follows. Delete 165-45, Schedule 1, Paragraph B, traffic and control signals, flashing beacons. Intersection is Bakeman Street and Wickham Road, operated only during school crossing times. 165-45, Schedule 1, Paragraph A, traffic control signals, flashing beacons, delete, intersection, South 7th and Oneida Street. 165-52, Schedule 8, stop intersections, add stop sign on Oneida Street, both sides, the intersection of North 7th Street and South 7th Street, both sides at the intersection of Oneida Street.
Do I hear a motion?
I'll move it.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next item.
Resolved, the clerk is authorized and directed to advertise for a public hearing to be held on April 15th, 2003 at 7 p.m. in the council chambers relative to a proposed local law to repeal Article 2, Chapter 173 of the Fulton City Code, titled Water.
Motion?
I'll second it.
Second?
We have
Do we have a second? Yes. We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next item.
Whereas Sergeant Dan Romanchek retired from the Fulton Police Department after 23 years of service. Whereas Dan Romanchek joined the Fulton Police Department on September 4th, 1979, and was promoted to the rank of sergeant on June 5th, 1987. And whereas he commanded the Traffic and Training Division from 1999 through 2001, and was responsible for various duties within the Fulton Police Department. And whereas he was known for police cases throughout his career, most notably of a 1983 case involving the brutal assault of a 6-year-old boy near Fairgrave School, and a 1985 case in the rescue of a distraught teenager prepared to jump from the Broadway Bridge in Fulton. Whereas Sergeant Romanchek received 2 exceptional duty citations from the City of Fulton, one for his role in successful accreditation of the Fulton Police Department training standards, as well as the development of a multimedia training curriculum for E911 telecommunications. Whereas throughout his 23 years, Sergeant Romanchek was responsible for many departments, traffic arrests, frequently being a leader in DWI arrests in the City of Fulton. Whereas in 2002, he was recognized by the New York State Department of Motor Vehicles Commissioner Raymond Martinez for the most aggressive driving arrest in a new traffic enforcement program. And whereas Sergeant Romanchek has a bachelor's degree in public justice and sociology from SUNY Oswego and was an honor graduate of his police academy class, finishing second in his class. Whereas Dan will be moving to Virginia with his wife Janet and daughter Stephanie and will be employed by the federal government. Now therefore be it resolved that the mayor, members of the Common Council, the Fulton Police Department, all city employees recognize the excellent record of service by Sergeant Dan Romanchek and wish him and his family our deepest gratitude, and be it further resolved that a copy of this resolution of recognition be spread upon the official minutes and record of the City of Fulton, and a copy of it to be forwarded to Sergeant Dan Romanchuk and his family.
I'll offer that, Your Honor.
I'll second
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. And just to speak on this a moment, I had the privilege of working with Dan from the time he was hired in '79 until I retired from the department in '96. And he was a very dedicated officer, worked especially in traffic enforcement, and it's a known fact that strict traffic enforcement reduce the accident rates in any area. And I appreciate his years of service to the department and wish him well in his future endeavors. Under discussion items, we have two. Chief Gurria has requested that number 2 be moved to number 1, and I've agreed to that request.
Good idea.
Chief?
Good idea.
Thank you for moving it to number 1. I believe you've all been given some background information on the FEMA grant application. This is the 3rd year that this has been going on with the federal government, and each year they've increased the allocations. The first year being $100 million, the second year being $360, and this year is $750 million. The application period expires at 5 p.m. on April 11th. I'm asking you to consider allowing the fire department to apply for another grant for this year. The requirements remain the same. It's a 10% matching, 90% of the funds coming from the federal government. Any of the information that you need is in the Federal Register. On the final rule, I provided that to you also. We can apply in one program area, and the area that I'm looking for is modifications to fire stations and facilities, and it's specifically that's the specific. The program is a firefighter safety and fire operations. I think it's an excellent opportunity for the community to be able to get what I'm looking for. Specifically, I'm looking to add a vehicle exhaust extraction system to that station. Back in 1999, when I was asked to submit a capital plan for 2000, I submitted a proposal for a system in this station and a system in the West Side station. In 2000, the system was put in as a capital project for this station, and we haven't been able to fund the system for the second station over on West Broadway. Due to the fact that diesel exhaust has been identified as a carcinogen, these systems have become more prevalent throughout the fire service. OSHA has established minimum particulate regulations, and these systems are designed to extract the exhaust from the diesel at the point of emission, which is the tailpipe. I think we have definitely seen a improvement in the condition of the stations, the physical station with the installation of the equipment here, by the reduction of the soot on the walls and throughout the living quarters. And we experienced the same thing over there at the other station, amounts of soot on the walls, which infiltrates into the living quarters. The system I'm looking for is going to run right around $31,000, so the city's share would be $3,100. However, discussions with FEMA have indicated that it would be very beneficial to the applicant if the applicant could provide for the electrical modifications that will be necessary. That should run around $1,000. So what I'm looking for, a commitment from the council of $4,100 to the fire department if we're awarded this grant. if you give me the permission to apply.
Now, when you apply, if you get it, when will you know? When will?
The closing period is April 11th. I believe I read in one of their distributions that they will start the review of the applications by the end of April, and the process will take from then until July. They're hoping to start announcing awards in July.
So if you did the work, it'd be this year if you got it.
All depends on when we're notified. The grant period is for 1 year. Last year we applied and we were notified of our acceptance or our awarding. It was January 1st, December 31st, the email date was. That's substantially into their process of announcements. So basically, our 2002 grant application was awarded at the end of the year. We have until December 31st to use up this grant. If it's a quicker notification, we still have a year. I would like to have it installed as soon as we can, once we're notified.
Okay.
I think we should cover our 10% share.
That's what I was gonna ask you.
Tony, how have we done, Chief, how have we done in the past with grants? Have we been fairly successful?
Well, when the FEMA grant came into existence and when they passed the legislation in 2000, they finally appropriated money for 2001. We applied both years. Up until then, I had looked for sources of grant funding and wasn't able to find it. You know, there's not a whole lot out there for the fire service. Since the incident in New York City in September of 2001, there seems to be more money available. I know the state is trying to make money available to the fire service. We applied in both years and we were successful. Between the 2 years, we had $167,000 awarded to the department, which is very good. I think it is. It doesn't mean that we're going to be successful this time.
Sure.
Last time I noticed there was just a little bit of indication in the final rule that they were going to look at things more closely, and in the new final rule, I noticed that they're tightening up things more. There's more money available, and they're trying to make it available to more departments, so they're starting to do things that they didn't do before. However, I'm comfortable with applying with what we're looking for because it's something that we need for that station.
Okay.
Any other questions? Would anyone entertain or propose a resolution to authorize the chief to file for the grant?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you very much, Chief.
Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you.
Next item is the advisory committee. Alderman Cavallaro.
Well, I think we talked about it at great length at the last meeting, and we all received a memo from Alderman Thompson. So I'm going to just let the council discuss what they may. If they're still interested or not. Potential names, if any, or how do we want to proceed?
I don't think we can put names out there because I know that I've considered a number of people, but I really haven't talked to them until I found out if we were going to proceed with this or not. I know at the last meeting I was somewhat saying we should do this and get going on it. Since then I've had some second thoughts as far as are there some other avenues that we can approach, and one of those, and I know I checked on it, and I think that that this had been discussed before, but the Center for Governmental Research, did we not look into those people as far as them doing a study on our government?
Yeah, we had the Planning Development Committee had the gentleman come last year and talk to us, and it was financially unfeasible to hire him for a study.
Yeah, he wanted like 20 grand just to walk in the door.
But, I mean, it would have been, if we could afford it, it'd be phenomenal, because I think that they have a lot
So
of
the total cost would be more than 20,000?
It was, if I remember right, his proposal was 20,000 to review how we could combine 2 departments, and that was it. Because we had looked at combining a couple of departments. We asked him to look at several different areas, and he picked out one, and the one that he picked was the combination of 2 departments, and said, for 20,000, I'll tell you how to do it. And we felt that
I
what
guess-
he was going to give us for $20,000, we probably could have done on our own.
And I
We
guess
didn't
that's
see
what
the
we're
value.
looking for, how do we get that kind of in-depth study done for our government? I'm not sure an advisory committee could do those kind of things. I don't know. Would they have, they would need access to all of the different departments, and would they be willing to spend that kind of time that we probably think they need to look at all these different departments?
Well, it's not, I think also, Bob, you have to look at what is this committee empowered to do? I know the committee was set up by a resolution either earlier this year or late last year, but it was pretty vague. Just said we hereby establish an advisory committee, which is a good start, but I think you have to figure out what the composition is going to be, more specifically, what powers they're going to have, what they can or cannot do. Certainly, you can't give them the authority to pass any legislation, but do you want them to be able to look at the records downstairs, that kind of thing, or in any department, which is kind of where you're talking about. I think you have to decide that before you figure
Yeah,
out.
somewhat. I think like as far as the comprehensive plan, the committee that worked on that for the 2 years or so, they've done an awful lot of that kind of work. So I think what we're looking for is whether it be a efficiency study or what, that can be done within our framework of government. Do we have too many people here and not enough people there, and how do we make those kind of changes to deliver our services more efficient and less expensive? But I don't know whether, I've gone from being very much in favor of advisory committee, because I think the more people that we have to help us is always going to be a benefit. But then I'm thinking about, would it be the best possible thing? Of course, is something that we're saying we can't really afford. Because you really want somebody coming from the outside that has no ties whatsoever. That, unfortunately, we have good advantages and bad advantages. Being the size city we are, we end up very well connected with most of the people in the city. And it's sometimes very hard to be impartial when you start talking about people and functions of government. It's difficult.
We've had so many committees over the years, and it seems to cost money whenever you do that. I don't know how many committees we've had on Lake Yanawanda, and I think they've done some good things over there, but we also spent a lot of money. It didn't come right out of the city coffers, but it still came from the taxpayers. And we still got a lake that's got a bunch of mud in the bottom, and it's not any better now than it was when we started the studies about 15 years ago. And
It's more expensive mud now, though.
well, yeah, it is, but I'm an old-fashioned guy. I wonder how far we could have got dredging the lake with that money, because it might have been gone then.
Be done by, really.
Yeah, but I think that everybody on this council knows, and the mayor, and probably the guys that sat here before us, and the women, and the ones coming in, the objective is to try to run the city as efficiently as you can, and that's dollars, hold the tax rate down, and the water rate and all that. And nobody needs to tell me that the money is where the employees are. That's where it is. And no matter how many committees you have, unless this body has the will to do what they have to do to change that, we're spinning our wheels, and we're going to cause a lot of aggravation. Because every time you start that, everybody gets nervous, and it's stressful, you know. Most of your money is in people.
Well,
I mean, it is.
You know it is, and I know it is, and the public should know that it is.
Yeah.
But if you look at what local government is in place to do,
Right.
it's to provide services.
Absolutely.
And all the services that we provide are labor-intensive.
Absolutely. I don't disagree with that at all.
We haven't found a computer yet, or you know, industry is able to automate.
Right.
When Nestle's came in and built Building 95, they invested $50 million, and it was a great investment in the community, but it eliminated 250 jobs.
Eliminated positions, absolutely.
We haven't found a way yet to automate, to find a computer or a machine that will drive a snowplow or answer a police call or drive a fire truck. All of this still requires people, and yes, a large percentage of our budget is for personnel. Until we can find a way, it's either reduce services that we're providing or
Increase revenue.
increase revenue. And we're trying to do that.
Yeah. The only thing is, I think, Your Honor, that we need to stop increasing revenue through the tax system. I mean,
Definitely.
I mean,
We need more state aid. State aid to municipalities, the amount we were getting in 1991 was about $1.2 million.
right?
Albany got in trouble, cut everybody's state aid in half.
That's what the bond had, I happened to.
Right. And we ended up that year having to have across-the-board layoffs because there wasn't enough money coming in to make the budget. They have brought that back up. But again, they cut us from 1.2 to about $6 million at that time. This last year, it was back up to $800,000. But we're not even back up to the 1991 level of 1.2 million. And it's just this is just our community, and it's happened throughout the state.
I think if we could focus on working through organizations like the Conference of Mayors and like that, to try to band together and do something about unfunded mandates. And
Well, we are working on that. I worked with the Conference of Mayors last November on their legislative committee, and we put together a legislative agenda to take to Albany. We would like to see increased state aid, but with the condition that Albany is in, we're struggling to keep the state aid that we have right now.
yeah, but I think they really need to look at a lot of the things that they impose on small cities.
Definitely. And in the executive budget this year, some of the items that Governor Pataki brought forward is going to help the unfunded mandates if it gets passed, but it needs to get passed to and be enacted to.
Well, you need relief on the federal end as well. I mean, right now, at the federal level and the state level, they're talking about making municipalities treat the runoff water from the streets.
Yes.
I mean, that is absolutely ridiculous. We can't afford the waste treatment system we have now for the sanitary.
Well,
I mean,
the
they're talking about
bad,
making us do that.
the bad part about that is not that long ago, EPA and DEC said you have to separate this,
Right.
and any of your stormwater cannot go into your sanitary.
And we did that.
And we've worked on that to eliminate as much as we can up to this point, and continue to work on this. There are a lot of houses in this city that have perimeter drains that were put in when the houses were built that drain into the sanitary sewer. That is actually a violation. There are some areas of the city where there's no place else to put it.
But you end up treating 1 million gallons a
That's
day
right.
more when during the rain
Right,
season.
and especially when we get into a heavy rain like we just did. The system can't handle it, and that's one of the reasons that we've got to look at.
Flush the lines out, but not anymore.
That's a tough way of doing that. But it's, now they're saying that they want to see the stormwater treated before it's released into the river. And if this, in fact, this legislation is passed and they do regulate this, God, I hope they provide some funding to do it, because the last time when we had to upgrade the wastewater treatment plant, at that time, and you well know,
I'm the one that did it with $8 million
there was no state money and no federal money available, and we had a bond for the whole shooting match,
Yeah.
and that was a 30-year bond that isn't paid off yet.
Yeah, and they
So-
wanted a $10,000 a day fine for every day that you were out of compliance. But the thing of it is, if they come in and give you the money to build the whole thing, it's still gonna be a big drag on your finances, because you're gonna have to staff it from here on out forever and ever.
It's gonna
That
have to be
doesn't go
maintained.
away, neither does the power bills for the pumps and the repair
Sure.
work. Once you're into it, you gotta help me trust in you.
We have strayed from the subject just a bit.
Yeah, we have, but I think what we should try to do is, a lot of the council had some good ideas. Joe had a good idea with this, that deal you got from the conference of mayors that they're looking at in Oswego now, where
User and benefit assessment fee?
benefit assessments, and what that is in the city right now, just a little over half of the real property is taxed. So that means the rest of us are carrying the ball for the other 48%. There are avenues through fees and stuff where you can start making them pay for some of the roads and the snow removal and the lighting and all that stuff. And that's only fair. It's not fair, to, in that 48 or that 52% that's paying, a lot of it's the industry that we're worrying about losing. So they're carrying the ball too.
And there is legislation, proposed legislation in
I know
Albany
there
to help take care of this problem somewhat.
Yeah.
And pass some of the expenses that are required onto these tax exempt properties. But it hasn't passed yet.
Right.
We came up with the idea not too long ago, year-wise, and Alderman Thompson was involved in this, of trying to reward property owners that took multifamily dwellings and took them back to single-family dwellings. And we found out that we could not provide incentives to them in a line of a tax break or something like this, or a phased-in tax. But since that time, Albany has implemented, for first-time home buyers,
Pilot agreements, I think.
that allow this to happen. Now that we have our foot in the door with that legislation, we need to work on Albany to get it changed to allow it, not only first time, but anybody that takes a multifamily and returns it to a single-family dwelling, some kind of assistance that can be provided to them. And, unfortunately, it doesn't happen overnight. It takes a long time for this stuff to happen, especially through Albany.
Well, I think if the council's going to have a committee like this, they need to be united on it. I don't, as the council president, want to see anything that's going to divide this council. This is going to be a very busy year, because it is an election year for the ones that are running. And we've got our work cut out for us to try to somehow ensure that we don't come into the fall with the same budget problems we did this year. And whatever we do, we need to be united on it, because it causes friction and hard feelings between the council members, and that's not good. We need to work together.
Well, I
think we
definitely
can
agree.
accomplish a lot of the same thing, but I think we need to focus on what we have
In reading the letter that I got from Alderman Thompson, and I agree that a committee of this nature needs to be as apolitical as possible, so that it's not one side or one party against another or something like that. And I think that is probably going to be the most difficult thing to do, to put a committee together that...
I think it would be a lot easier if it
We'll
was an
work
off year. You know, I really
Well, that's
do.
a possibility.
I think if it was an off year, I don't think that the feelings would run so high in it. I mean, that's just my thoughts on it, but...
I don't think it's politics at all. I don't think that's a...
No, I mean, it's an off year for me anyway. I'm not running.
Alderman Cavaliero's been more than equitable with some of the choices that he had. I think the problem is just trying to, who are the right people, you know, and I don't know where they're at, and I know John has made a selection.
And if you come up with a list of people before talking to them, would they be willing to serve? This is going to take some investment in time if you're going to do the job right. And
And then are you going to be willing to do what they recommend?
well, and that's going to be completely up to the council.
Because if you don't, then you're wasting everybody's time.
That's right.
And probably you're going to cause a lot of stress with
The
people
committee
right here.
itself,
Where it's done.
What'd you say, John?
you would express comments to the committee if you didn't do what they recommended you to do.
Of course, that's the idea of the advisory committee is to implement.
Right.
Right.
You know, we're going to have our hands full with budget this year and with the implementation of the comprehensive plan.
Sorry.
Maybe you're right, Ron, maybe this needs to be postponed until,
I'm not saying it's a bad idea.
No.
I know I've had a couple of the council talk to me and that feel, and I've talked to Joe about it. He knows. We've been right up front about it. I don't believe in my mind that Joe is trying to be political. I think that you tend to offer people that you have experience with, that you have confidence in. And that makes sense.
Well, why don't we look at it another way? Ryan, you brought up the user fee and benefit assessment fee. We all have had copies of that, along with the information we received from the city of Rochester in implementing a portion of the benefit fee so that we can get at the other percentage of folks that are paying toward the services received in the city. We've pretty much hired a law firm. Is it possible to use the law firm to look into implementing some of these benefit assessment fees?
Good, but what I'd like to do first is, I know that, I think you told me the city of Oswego has already hired, was it Romer and Waylands to look in that?
Yeah, but the time frame is such that
Borrow what they get for free.
if we don't begin to implement some of this,
Yeah, I know.
budget time is going to be upon us, and we will miss the opportunity. I guess that's my concern. And we've been looking at this since last year.
Yeah. I agree.
And have done nothing with it.
well, there are some areas that we can do that and some areas that are questionable at this time, as
I understand.
as we have discussed. I would suggest that the Planning and Development Committee take these sections that have been able to be implemented in other municipalities
Right.
and try to move forward with that at this time. And then we can address the questionable ones in the future as possibly more information develops nearby.
Yeah.
I think it's a little more complicated. I don't know how the other members of the planning committee feel about it, but I think it's a little more complicated than I feel I can deal with. There is some legalities involved. We could call the lawyer from Rochester to see if she might be available to come visit us and explain how they arrived at what they did.
There was a city attorney there,
Yes, it was.
on the staff of the city.
Correct.
That is an option.
And they've already implemented
we could
something.
look-
Yeah, I gave you all copies of that. There's an ordinance attached to it.
So they haven't had anybody sworn or anything, or tested?
No. No.
But that idea, I think, would work at this point in time if we could reach out to her and see if she could bring
I'd be glad to try.
some information forward, okay?
I'll do that.
I'd be willing to pass something like that and try it. I mean, at least get the foot in the door. Anything to spread the...
We have to try things.
Right.
Oh, any idea has to be investigated. We cannot dismiss anything on its face. We have to investigate before we say, no, we cannot do this. We just can't afford to throw ideas out. And that's what I've said during my tenure here. I have had an open door policy. I continue to have it. I want people to come in with suggestions. If I can tell you that all suggestions will be investigated, will be looked at, reviewed. Some of them will not be feasible, but if you come forth with a suggestion and it's not used, when it's not used, we can let you know why it's not used and why it's not feasible. But we've got to come up with ideas and continue to try to move forward. There's no doubt. Anyone else have anything to say on the advisory committee? If not, I will entertain anybody in the audience that has business. I saw that. I am meeting with Nestle's at 9:30 tomorrow morning.
Are you going on the field trip? You're going on the field trip?
Oh, it was, when it rained, I've already talked to Roger Parsons about having to get the people up there to clean those catch basins in that area, because that oh, I know it. I've never seen this much dirt, sand. Apparently, they didn't use that much salt. They used almost straight sand this year in that big parking lot, and it's an inch or two thick in areas. And when it rained this last weekend and like this, it was pouring into the catch basins. Yeah, definitely. Yes, it is. But that is one of the items on the agenda to discuss with Nestle's tomorrow morning.
One other thing, I was asking Joe, this is back to the water rate thing. What percentage do we base the sewer tax on? How much percent?
Usage.
What percentage of the usage?
No, it's not a percentage of the usage. It's the number of gallons of water that you use that is reflected, or that is what your sewer rate is based on. There's no change in that.
How do you come up with the number? What number are they using?
But
to work that price?
$3.75 per thousand, $3.75 per thousand gallons.
$3.75 per thousand? I could
Right.
never figure that
Isn't
out.
that
I
right?
thought they paid it against how much money it cost me for my water bill.
No, it's per thousand gallons. It's 3 something per thousand gallons.
I think it's $3.75 per thousand gallons.
I think you're right.
That little 20, I know you gotta pay
It's
to
been
take care of it.
$3.75 since God was a baby, too. I mean, it's been $3.75 for a long time. And that hasn't changed. What's that? Well, there's a lot of folks in town that think that, if the water rate was, it used to be, what, $1.69 per thousand, $3.75 was a certain percentage of the water rate. And that's not the case. It's a flat number, has nothing to do with the water rate. It's that number times how many thousands of gallons you use.
And now that $26.25 that we're paying, that's the base rate, no matter how little
Yep.
you use. So it
Yep.
doesn't matter It doesn't start with anything, it's how much
It's
you
26
use.
bucks for 0,000 gallons.
And then it starts at $1.81.
Yep, plus
for everything.
$1.81 for your next 1,000, and another $1.81 for your next 1,000, another $1.81, yep.
I feel a lot different than it was last year.
Yep. Sure does.
Water bill was averaged $105, and it's going to be, that was everything, water bill and sewer tax.
Make sure you take your prescription before you open the bill.
I do. Nothing leaks, one bathroom, that's it. What do you think of that?
Actually, pay to use it with a minimum.
Yes, sir.
People have any consideration for us senior citizens that live alone? That survey says that it was taken for people that had 2.5 people in their households. In my block alone, there's 3 people that live in one separate houses. And it must be the same way around the whole city. And if we're based on that there, we're being discriminated upon because there's only one of us instead of 2.5. And the rate should be the same for one of us as 2.5 or 3 or 4. And that's what the survey said when they put it up.
Is that what the,
No, the rate's the same for everybody. It's the base rate is the same for everybody, and that's based on based on the size of your meter. And you can't charge different because one person lives here, 2 here, 3 here. Number one, because people move all the time. Who's going to keep track of that? You'd need to hire 10 more people just to keep track of
Got
it.
enough people working in City Hall to keep track of that stuff. But
what?
That's
That
very,
is,
very debatable, but this is the fairest way to do it. I know it affects you more than other people.
fair to me.
Just like probably the garbage affects you more than others, when that was
garbage
changed.
does affect me.
I understand that.
Because I don't even have a half a bag, and I pay the same as some people down the street that's got 3 and 4 or 5 bags.
but that,
Garbage in,
That's true.
when they, I believe when they said,
discrimination?
No, I wouldn't call it
Oh,
discrimination.
I would.
I believe the amount that when they used that 2.5 people for a family, that was when they came up with an estimate of what the annual bill would be based on 70,000 gallons usage or, yeah, something like that. So if your usage stays low, your bill is going to be lower than somebody that's using more water. It's going to be lower than those people.
Last 2 quarters, my usage for water was $9 and something, and my water bill total was over $60 because of garbage pickup you raised and trash. sewage.
Right. I understand this, but your water bill is still going to be based on your
Those
usage.
things shouldn't even be on the water bill.
Well,
Because if somebody owns a house and they're filing a wrong tax form, they can't.
Okay, but-
It's a tax.
okay, but if you do it any other way, if you just put it on your property tax, what about the 48% of the buildings in the city that aren't taxed? How do you recover the cost of it? Well, it's not my fault either.
Penalized for 48%, then they're being taxed.
Well, as I said, if you put it on the water bill, then everybody that uses it, everybody that uses the system,
Everybody that is using it and isn't using it and didn't think, using the full amount or whatever it is, they're charged a surcharge. Surcharge, whether they use that amount or not.
Your
You got your garbage pickup and your sewer pickup and everything else is on there too. And their bills, when I had 6 kids home and my wife doing a wash every day, my bills weren't as high as they are now. Now I'm alone now, and nobody else to take 4, 5, 6 hours a day in the wash and everything. And I'm paying more money now than I did then.
and everything has gone up since you had that many
Everything's
kids.
gone up, sure. You raised the trash pickup already, $20 each the last 2 quarters. This quarter, you dropped it down to 10. You're gonna add a 1% sales tax. You people don't want us living in here. And if I was younger, I wouldn't stay 1 more minute.
Well, all I can say is the cost of providing services have continued to go up. The water rate has not been raised in 10 years, 12 years. Now, the cost of providing this has gone up
Instead of all at once.
because we did it now because we're losing our largest water customer.
Yes, but if you lose a customer, you can't expect the other people to make up for that.
Everybody else has got to make up for it, you betcha.
No.
Yes,
That's not right.
because the system,
Business for himself, and if he loses a customer, you don't charge his customers extra for
the system is still there, the infrastructure is still there, still has to be maintained. That's the problem.
You know what you want to do then? You want to get somebody to go down on the Whitcomb track with a water leak thing and fix the leaks that are down there, and it'll more than make up for what they're losing from Nestle's.
Okay.
They got transite pipe down there. When the buildings were all built down there, one guy by the name of Benway used to do the digging. And he would break every water main that he was digging for a hole for. And there's a lot of leaks down there that should be plugged up.
On any specific street or that whole area?
The whole area.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Has there been any looking into in the water department as far as maybe trying to cut back somewhere in the department itself? I did notice in the last maybe 2 years, we have purchased a lot of vehicles this time, a lot of vehicles. Maybe some of the old stuff was run down, but there seems to be an awful lot of people, 2, 3 guys riding around with pickup trucks in this town. I wish maybe if we're going to set up a committee to do something, that maybe we would look into this.
We have been meeting with the individual department heads and continue to do so to ask them if they can reduce their staffing at all and still provide the level of service that the residents of this city are used to.
Because most of us, when our insurance, wherever we work, a lot of us, not most of us, our insurance goes up, we incur the bill. All of a sudden, insurance goes up on our workers in our city, and they expect us to incur the bill too. I realize insurance, everything's going up. And I mean, there's not, there doesn't seem to be much of a sight, an end in sight. Has there ever been an entertaining of maybe our workers start picking up some of their cost of the insurance?
With this,
Hospital's been cutting back. My wife works over the hospital here in town, and there's been a lot of cutting going on over there.
with the last contract that we negotiated with the unions, we were able to get into that contract where the employees are paying a percentage of premium on their health care insurance. Right now, 10% this year. That's right. It started very low to get in that. We could not get that without going through bringing in a state mediator. We went to impasse with the unions because we wanted this, and they, of course, did not. And we brought in a state mediator, and finally the mediator was able to get them to agree to this. Okay? So we have our foot in the door. And it's going to, we're going to go into negotiations here in the very near future because the contracts are up at the end of this year. That's all of them, all city employees. All city employees. Until the 2000 through 2003 contract, or 2001 through 2003, the fire department was the only union that was paying a small portion toward their insurance. And that is because they had negotiated in the past, back in the 80s, a better plan than the rest of the city employees had. But it was some. But now, all city employees are paying a percentage of their health care premiums, and we are trying to find other ways, such as offering them a buyout if other places have done this, where if the spouse has insurance someplace else, we can buy out, so we do not have to provide them insurance. It's all in the plan.
For my prescription because I don't get that.
Yeah.
I had to get a
But this is, as I said, we got our foot in the door. We started out in 2001 to get our foot in the door with 5%. It went to 7.5% last year. It's up to 10% this year. And as I said, we're going into negotiations, and of course, trying to recover the increase in cost is going to be negotiable. We are trying to get more of the cost of health care to the employees. There's no doubt about that, and they know it too.
Another way to entertain maybe picking up some money, I don't know just what the amount is in the whole city, but I know from my dining room window, I can look at 6 junk cars. 4 of them are Syracuse police.
You have talked to me about this.
No, I've talked to you and I've talked to John for 2 years.
That gentleman has been cited, and if this isn't Iraq.
2 years.
I know it. But that, I believe that case is in court now. I'm not sure, but I know that they've been cited.
Your Honor, it is, because that was one of the things I talked to
Right.
Steve on.
Okay, so I know that that has been addressed. Unfortunately,
There's a lot of them in the whole city.
yes, it is.
Somebody, I think zoning should go out, maybe with a police officer and start ticketing these people. And if they don't have them out in 2 weeks, 30 days, whatever you want to give them, fine them $100.
Well, first of all,
Slap them another 500 if they're attaching plates, because that's all I do.
I wish it was that simple. We cannot just lay fines on people. We have to, if we try to get them to comply, to remove the vehicle. If they don't do that, then we file an accusatory with the court. They file a criminal summons to bring them into court, and then it's up to the judge to determine what occurs.
We've been knowing this for like 2 years.
Yes,
It would be same vehicle, same guy, same yard.
yes. And that's not the only place where that gentleman is.
As the vehicle.
Right, and we're responding to the other one too.
I don't understand, because if a person is driving down the street DUI, you take his license and you lock him up. This guy is blatantly saying, I'm not gonna pay it.
Yes.
And nobody is doing it.
There is a fine line, and he knows how to walk it. He's going to step over it one of these days.
And then park in front of my house. Now, I've offered to take it off your hands for the past 4 years. Well, no, wait a minute.
Longer than that.
Longer than that. Bullard was here.
Yes.
And I'll pay the taxes on it. That's what we need more of in this town. Let these little parcels of land that are not being taxed.
The only way we can get rid of that park
I know I've heard it.
is to get Albany to authorize it.
I've heard it, and I've also heard from the Historical Society and all their views and everything. And it still looks like a pig pen out there in front of my house. And I still, I make the offer again tonight. And I will purchase it and pay taxes on it. But there's oodles of land in this town that are not being taxed, that should be taxed. And we need to make money somewhere. Netflix went out, Miller's went out in 93, 2, whatever it was, 2 look where we are. We're back beating these poor retired people. Pretty soon I'm gonna be there. I'm gonna be the one up there. You know?
Got 1.25%, and it took half that back on just raising the sewer tax.
I would like to maybe
And the other half went
see if somebody, if you could set up a committee to look into that.
Medicare.
Into the,
Park and any other parcels of land that maybe we could sell and get rid of.
that is really going to be addressed strongly in the comprehensive plan. That is one of the areas that will be addressed.
The ballpark down below my house, let the ball players take care of it. They're down there playing all the time. I mean, there's different things we can do to curb here. I mean, we are steadily. And my house, I do entertain retired people, 5 families. And you and I went, hashed it over because I was getting charged for garbage on all 5 apartments, and I got 2 of them that are under renovation. I don't even have people. I got 3 adults in the house, like this gentleman said. 3 of us adults. Next door, I had 2 adults and 4 kids. They're paying 1/5 of what I was paying for garbage. And the mayor and I sat down and discussed it. And it's rough. I realize you guys got a rough job trying to make ends meet in this day and age.
The only thing that you failed to say is we came to an agreement on this that was fair to both the city and yourself. Okay.
No, I'm saying I made out, you made out. I'd still be around the radio if I didn't.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? On the council?
Yes, Your Honor, tonight, we have a situation over on Ample Street that needs to be addressed by the Water and Sanitation Commissioner. There's an order, a guideline order, of raw sewage over in the Tannery Creek area at Galloway.
Well, that's back.
And
Okay.
so, you can ride over there tomorrow, look into the situation. It's really repulsive. That's it tonight.
Okay. Second word.
Right to your street.
Third word.
All that?
Get to him.
And
I just both of them.
we need a new system.
First of all, I want to thank Mr. Ritz for coming here tonight. He called on 2 different occasions, and I certainly share your feelings. There's no question about it. It's a very difficult situation. As I talked to you on the phone, unfortunately, they have to make up a lot of revenue, and one of the ways to do it is to spread the cost over all the people in the city.
You can't go penalizing us because nothing will be done. You don't go charging your customers more because you lose a customer.
The mayor explained
If they're not using that much water, they don't have to produce that much water.
I have a product to sell where we have a service to provide, but we have to make sure that matches up with the revenue.
1958, we put a line in down on Phillip Street from the well right up to the bird's eye water. I don't even think that's being used. They were a good customer. We put it in to supply them with enough water to keep busy and doing what they were doing, and they're still here. But we give Nestle's all kinds of incentives, and they break it off.
I know, there's no guarantees, we did the same thing with Miller's. We gave Miller's a 10 years to be pilot, and 10 years they left. That's the,
Corporate America.
you roll the dice,
But look at our wins. Hutamaki, not only were we able to save 450 jobs, but they've added 150 since then. There's no guarantee that they'll be here forever, but you have to work with these companies to keep the jobs here. That's all there is to it.
Clause in there that if you've given them so much money, they should be liable to pay it back if they decide to pull out, not just let them go.
I agree.
The city ought to think Chapter 11.
That has been considered and discussed.
Let's start all over.
And reorganize.
If I could also follow up on the water. There was some comments in the newspaper and the Daily News recently about the water rates and some of the things that were perceived as had happened, and it did not happen in the way that it was presented. First of all, it wasn't necessary for a public hearing to establish the water rates by our district attorney. Yeah, sure. Our city attorney had determined that it wasn't required to raise the water rates. We did not have to have a public hearing. We did have, 2 weeks ago, we had the consultants talk to us about the water study and the rates and that kind of thing. And that information got out, so that was good. Also, we did not vote on anything in executive session. We would never do that. There was an executive session to discuss the litigation, the possibility of litigation if we did change the water rates, which Alderman Thompson had asked for, which was good. City attorney in the executive session determined that we were okay to raise the water rates. We went out of executive session into a regular meeting and passed the water rates. There was a time frame we had to do that by April 1st so that we could implement the water rates for the next cycle.
In this morning's paper, it says that this meeting was going to be about increasing the water rates. And I can see why you can do it, because there's nobody here to say no.
No, the city charter sets the procedure on how water rates can be modified, and it does not require a public hearing. It requires the water commissioner bringing information forth to the common council, and the common council votes on doing it. That is what is in the city charter, and that's why it was done that way.
How are they going to determine the sewer?
The sewer rate is,
Sewer is based on the amount of water they use.
that's right.
It's $10 worth of water, and my sewer bill is about 3 times.
No, it's not.
$60, over $60 per water bill.
Your sewer charge is based on the number of gallons of water that goes through your meter.
Not the dollars.
Not the dollars. The number of gallons goes through your meters determines your sewer rate.
The more people should know that, because I just found that out. I thought we had dirty pools, and I had come to the meeting 2 weeks ago, and we had that water thing, and the next thing I know, they said they raised the rates, and I said, but I had written on my paper, it'll be the 25th, but I'm assuming it was April the 25th, so I didn't come for the following week, which I talked to Joe. I said, I gotta have an understanding on this water thing, because I don't get it. And he said that you had a meeting the following week, and that was passed.
One of the things that is very good about having these meetings taped and having them go on television is we can get a lot more information out to a lot more people.
Right? So I met